let's start with this. This is coming from Daniel RPK, which, by the way, I think I say those letters wrong all the time. Apologies to Daniel. It is Daniel RPK, or Daniel Richtman, who, of course, is, I consider to be a very good insider and scooper when it comes to Marvel and all sorts of stuff, really. And this is significant because it is not coming from his Patreon or someone else looking at his Patreon and then like talking about a different rumor or a thing out there, okay? This is straight from Daniel's mouth, or at least straight from his Twitter. This was in a thread where he was talking about the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and he was answering questions. He basically said, like, I'll know more about the trailer when I know about it. And he was asked a number of different things here, and we'll go over some of them, but the one I want to start with here is this one. Do you think Andrew will return as Spider-Man after No Way Home? He said yes. Let me explain something. Just him saying that, it definitely means something. This is not just some dude on Twitter saying a thing. This guy is very careful with what he says on Twitter. He has great sources, and he's also one of the first people that was really on top of all the craziness that is coming for Spider-Man No Way Home. And so when he says something like this, I think it's way more than him just being like, yeah, I think so. He said literally yes. Do you think Andrew will return as Spider-Man after No Way Home? Yes. So there's a lot of mystery here. There's a lot of things going on. But I also think it is worth mentioning that as this whole deal was going on, right, as this whole thing was being figured out, one of the things that we heard first was that whatever was going on with Andrew and Tom, and Andrew was the much easier person to negotiate with and had seemingly been involved before Toby, and there was a lot of difficulties and contractual things going on with Tobey Maguire, okay? So as we were sort of going through that, to me, I always thought, okay, honestly, what that probably means is that his part is less significant and likely not really moving forward after that. Like, honestly, and this was just my sort of, just the way that I was taking it, the way that I was thinking about it, the way I thought about it was, okay, so if they're not going to have, or rather, if Toby was the one that they had all this difficulty for, then maybe Andrew's just in for one film and then he's done. You know what I mean? And then he's going to die, and then they'll figure something out. There's a big rumor that a major character will be killed at the end of No Way Home, and there's even a lot of evidence that there were different shots out there of Tom Holland crying over a body. They don't know who it is. I honestly assumed it was Andrew. I assumed it was Andrew for a number of different reasons. Again, sort of speculating about the first of all, the fact that his trilogy was probably the least well received out of all the different Spider-Man, just critically, financially. I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I think it's just a reality out there that it was not the favored of fans or critics. Also, the fact that Toby had all these, problems negotiating. It just, to me, I was like, okay, well, that's probably because it was super easy to get Andrew to just sign up for a one and done. Now, we do know that a lot of things with a lot of things with Spider-Man No Way Home and Marvel's macro plan, we know a lot of that has been shuffling around, okay? Just last week, we talked about a story where it was reported by the hashtag show that now that the deal between Sony and Disney had been figured out, they were now solidifying their plans. Marvel Studios was solidifying their plans with Norman Osborn. Okay, let's go back to and just so that we're clear on that, the story was that Willem Dafoe, who, by the way, Daniel also mentioned on Twitter yesterday as being the main antagonist of Spider-Man No Way Home, which is again something that was in that one leak that I told y'all was real. The story from the hashtag show was that now Marvel was going to get their own version of Norman Osborn, a prominent New Yorker who they had already approached but had not agreed to the part. So what I'm saying to you is, although there was it seems, just from my sort of outside looking in perspective, it would seem that there was a plan, but that plan got massively shuffled around. I mean, one of the biggest things that happened to Marvel's plan was, I think, Doctor Strange 2 getting pushed to seemingly the end of this phase putting a ton of distance between it and WandaVision, but also, I generally believe, changing a lot of the elements that were going to be in Doctor Strange 2 and giving enough time to solidify and pull together all of the craziness that they want to. I mean, the rumors for Doctor Strange 2 are ridiculous. Ridiculous. Hugh Jackman Wolverine returning. Tom Cruise as Iron Man. Now, at this point, a lot of this stuff's rumors. It can't be necessarily confirmed. A lot of it does, however, come from Daniel Richtman. Okay? So, is it possible that Andrew Garfield was not easily signed because he was not going to be in the movie or in any other future projects? But is it possible that either the struggles in the negotiation with Toby, could that have been because he wasn't coming back? Could that have been because they didn't want to use him moving forward and he was bummed that he would die in that film or die in the next couple of movies? I don't really think so. There's actually some evidence out there, and I forget who it was. It may have even been Casey Walsh or Jordan Mason. I'd have to double check to be certain. But it was one of the insiders that I think is pretty good and has a good beat on this kind of stuff, had mentioned that they now believe that both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will hang out in the MCU after No Way Home for some time. Meaning Spider-Verse and that element may just be beginning in No Way Home, okay? And then may kind of be sprinkled throughout some of these other movies, and then eventually brought into Doctor Strange 2 Into the Multiverse of Madness. Now, when it comes to Venom, and I want to show you something that Grace Randolph said or had on her Twitter. If we check this out, she's just saying and pointing out a sort of connection here that Andy Serkis directed Andrew Garfield in Breathe. Andrew-verse for Venom just got an extra advantage. Now, of course, she's not really like implying that this is totally a thing, but she is talking about it, and a lot of people are talking about it. We already have a Venom in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. It was Topher Grace, and it was awful. So, is it possible that we're going to get Andrew Garfield connected to the Venom-verse? Because it would make sense for them to attach a Spider-Man to that universe that is not Tom Holland. This is something we've been speculating about for 9+ months. Remember, when it first fell apart in 2019, I told you guys, I believe what will happen is that Kevin Feige will figure out a diegetic way to make it very distinct, the differences between whatever Sony is doing with Venom and their whole universe over there and what Feige is doing in the MCU. Again, going back to the report from the hashtag show last week, it's been indicated, and it appears to be the case, that that negotiation is finalized between Sony and Disney at least until 2026. And they also, with that, this is what was so interesting to me in that report, with that being the case, now Marvel was fully free to cast and to approach their Norman Osborn. Not the one for the Sony Avengers, but their Norman Osborn. The other flip side of that, which is obvious but needs to be mentioned, is that Tom Holland will be the Spider-Man for the MCU. Okay? But let's think about this, okay? From the perspective of Sony, even if Feige was integral into, let's say, bringing Andrew back or something to that degree, what is the benefit of having Andrew Garfield be the Spider-Man for Venom unless, from the perspective of getting some of that MCU juice, right? Everybody wants the MCU juice. That's why Sony wanted to just take Tom Holland back. They wanted the normies and, some other fans to think that Tom Holland was just the Spider-Man, meaning the MCU and the Venom-verse had this loose continuity, right? Much like Marvel had in the past with, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Netflix shows. Sony always wanted that MCU stank. That MCU stank comes with dollar bills. So from Sony's perspective, why would it be beneficial to bring Andrew Garfield into the Venom-Verse? Like, how do you get some of that MCU stank? Well, it's pretty obvious. You put Andrew Garfield into an MCU movie, which is what is going to happen in Spider-Man No Way Home. Beyond that, if the rumors are true that both Tobey and Andrew are going to hang around in a post-No Way Home world, there are rumors that either Tobey or Andrew will play some kind of a role in Doctor Strange 2. There are rumors that Tobey will get his Spider-Man 4 with Raimi over at Sony. But it's also being rumored that Andrew Garfield will be the Spider-Man for the Venom-Verse. And here's where I'm here to tell you. Why not all of it? Why not all of it? I mean, I think if we're really and truly moving towards Secret Wars and some of the multiverse insanity that is out there, and Sony has already proven with their animated film of, Into the Spider-Verse, that is something that not only fans can get behind, but embrace and love the idea of multiple different Spider-Man. If you're Sony, sure, you have 900 plus characters just through the license of Spider-Man. But you also have multiple versions of the most valuable character a part of that arrangement, Spider-Man. And so that's kind of where I want to leave this sort of talk or rant or whatever about the possibilities of Andrew Garfield being the Spider-Man for the Venom-Verse, some of the reasons it makes sense, and just some of the things that are being said out there that make me think it's possible Sony's going to be giving us multiple live-action Spider-Man franchises and playing nice with Marvel and allowing Marvel to have Tom Holland and a new Norman Osborn be completely secure over there in the MCU. I think this may well be the way all of this is kind of being moved together, okay?